Is it that time? It is too. It's time to start the finish. So as you can see here, we have the engine planted. What we're waiting for, and what I'm still waiting for throughout this, it's gonna happen in this video, is I'm just waiting for that plate so I can attach this and the starter. But before we do that, let's start taking a look at some easy things we can do. So first and foremost, if you remember, we put a breather line off the back end of our car intake. If it's yours is the same, you'll see this breather from the Jeep. First thing I would do, just to make sure you don't forget, go ahead and pop that on. So just sink that in to right here. I'm gonna sink that in 1 sec. I will find a better place to strap this up and out of the way. I just figured, hey, you know what? This is kind of cool because it'll hold it down. I can still strap it. This will stay here. We just want to make sure we avoid our steering. This is our big umbilical cord we started with. I'm going to be putting this over here. It's going to get zap strapped away from that steering linkage, because the last thing you want is your steering to get caught up in this. And then the same thing will happen to this. This will get strapped up here and away from this, and it'll follow our AC line. I'm gonna leave this over here for right now, but this right here is the connector. Don't plug it in. This is my old ECU. I'm not gonna even plug this in, because if for some reason this ever sees power, we don't want it being attached. So after we've done that, this side is sort of got something going on now. Again, that'll be strapped up and be strapped away from that steering linkage. Always watch for the linkages and stuff like that. And of course, belts. Make sure you have nothing in front of the belts. The next thing I'm gonna quickly do is see these little 8mm? Take this off and get that power steering. This is our old power steering that was over here. This needs to disappear. So 8mm bolts, remove that power steering out of the way. If you know from my previous video, you know that I have these, which are heater core hoses from a 2014 Dodge Ram 1500 Hemi. So I used those heater core hoses over the Jeeps, and it fits right onto the heater core. Go ahead and slap those on with some clips. I actually had one clip left over from the Dodge Ram, which I'll use to hold the hoses. And back here, I might strap them. We'll see how the battery box goes in the end. That's why I'm not doing too much here until I get my battery box in. And as for these wires, these are gonna get zap strapped up here. As you can see right here, we have this. You can go ahead, plug that plug in, and when you go to strap stuff, strap that plug up nice and high, keep it nice and out of the weather. You can see my starter wires down there for when my transmission gets bolted in. You should only have one wire hanging off the front, that's this one. Tuck it away until we get the front end back together, because that'll be for your intake. But you're really not going to do your intake until after your radiator and your front end's done. Test fitting this on here so that way I can see how much of the battery box I actually need to cut out. So I want to possibly keep this front end piece so that way I can use this still for my intake. Don't know if it'll fit yet, but if it does, cool. If not, not a big deal. Cut it out. So if I'm going to reuse that, what I need to do is come over here. As you can see, the studs line up. We just have to make more clearance. So I think what I'm going to do is come down this line right here, because I want to keep the mounting bracket. You can see my stud right here. I'm going to actually take an oscillating tool, cut this, bring it down to here, and then cut over here. See if I make some lines in this dirt. Up and over to here, right to this clip, because I don't need this whole section right here. And then right to here. And then from there, I might just come up right through here and see how much of the tip-em part. If I have to take out a bunch from the tip-em, I will come down through here, try and keep this one leg right here. Cut through, past the leg, over to here, and then up. Or over and around, and then up through here, because that's about where the engine is. I want to try and keep at least 2 to 3 of the legs. If I can only keep these 2, that's not a big deal as long as it straps in. I'll find a way to strap it down. If I can keep this one, and this one, even better day, because 3 out of 4 is pretty good. So the path that I'm going to take is I'm gonna definitely bring it down through here. And then after I bring it down through here, come down to here, Miko will come over and show you too. We're gonna bring it right down through here, cut it, and then right up to right here. And then we'll follow this down. I wanna keep this one leg, like I said, and we'll cut the rest out. What? Is it because I have owies? Well, thank you, Mika. All right, before we get started on that battery box, just wanted to also show you guys that I got the transfer case on. All I did is I slipped the bolts through. Don't forget your bracket so you can have something to hold onto that cable. So put that back on and crank these down with a wrench. But see how it has a swivel tip? So that way it allowed me to swivel around the objects to tighten it up. And then I went in here with a very small ratchet to get that one. Now, very hard thing is to get a torque wrench on there. If you can get one on there, because you have the different pieces to do it, I'd probably do it around 20 to 30 foot-pounds. So even if you did 25, you're set. I went off the wrench, went and cranked them, and then I got my torque wrench on this one, and I set it to actually 240 inch-pounds because only my inch-pounds one would fit in there. And that's 20 foot-pounds, and I checked a couple, checked that one, and I checked that one up there, and they all bottomed out, so I know that they're at least 240 inch-pounds, which is 20 foot-pounds, so I know they're all good all the way around. So now that I know the transfer case is good, I'm going to leave this for right now until I get my pieces for that. I also bought, not the dog, actually, we did buy you, didn't we? Yeah, we did, didn't we? Good girl. You were a good purchase. Reliable. So, as you can see, transmission adapter plate for my jack for when I mount it. Next thing I'm going to do though is get started on this battery box. So this is my tool of choice, the oscillating tool. This one should be just deep enough to get in here to do this. If not, I have another blade to go in afterwards. I just want to get it started with this one. So, first thing that we need to do is make sure we're cutting the right area. How you know you're cutting the right area is it's this front, and you can see the two little dimples right here. That's where an old connector used to connect onto. So, like I said, I want to keep that front piece. So my plan is to basically cut up this edge right here, or even on a bit of an angle here. We'll see. I might even just bring it up right here. Take a look at that. Cut that one piece of plastic off. Just like I said I tried to keep it just like that. I'm just showing you so you can see for your own. But take a look at that. It clears nice. I have the tip-em forks here. These mounts are going to line up just right, and that's good. Now, you're probably wondering, what are you using for a battery box? Well, that's right here. Haven't decided which way I'm going to mount it yet, but it goes just like this. And it'll clear right there. Perfect. But as you can see, it goes right there, lines up against this plastic beveled edge, and keeps this from touching the edge. Leaves some room to tuck in some wires if I really want to. Loom the sides, that way it doesn't chafe anything. But leaves a little room in here too if I ever want to mount. Maybe I can even mount that module that I have for my rock lights right here. That'd be sweet. Okay, so yeah, like I said, leaves some options. And if you really wanted to, you could get two of these, clear this out. Maybe not. I don't know. Up to you. But that's what I'm gonna do. Have this here, battery will sit here, tip-em will sit right here. I'm gonna clean this all up so that way it's nice and clean over here. And another thing that's up to you, see this is where your intake was. Chances are your intake isn't gonna work. So you can actually technically cut this up and around here if you want to have another area for your intake to sit. So that way you can make something custom and have it sit right here. Or you leave this and then you have this to mount a bracket to that can hold on to your intake. Completely up to you. Well, that looks pretty dope to me. I like it. Now, I mean, you could technically buy or build an L bracket and then still use that battery clamp down and keep your battery here. yeah, I went with the TMR because then I can at least have it full supported and bolted down. And I'm gonna mount it through this plastic with a couple of extra bolts I have. That way I know that battery will sit nice and in there. So from here, we have this. I'm actually just gonna roughly bolt this in and put the tip of them in here so it's nice and safe. I'm not actually gonna, of course, connect the battery until the very end. That's the very last stage. I just wanted to get this in here so that way I could see how the engine is gonna sit. You literally cannot mess this up. As you can see, it even shows you what's going where. When you go to do this, half cock the handle, then go to sink it in, this should start moving, and then this will lock in. And then after it's fully locked, you can lock it in with the safety and you won't be able to move it anymore. Make sure you lock in all safeties when you're done. That way you know that nothing comes out. And look at, see how it's got a blue edge? Blue connector goes there. Red connector, or brown connector goes there. And then gray, and then I think that's probably supposed to be an orangey color, but I don't know where that one is, so we'll see. Reminder for the big connectors, if you don't remember for when you disconnected them, sink in and then sink. And then it makes all the locky noises. And go ahead and do the same with the brown, which is that one, the big one right here. Just wraps around. And folds it in. And then fold the handle down. And remember not to force it. Just do that. And then the last one. So let's quickly go over them. Blues on the far end, green, brown, gray. And then we have the whitish handle one right here. And then the actual white one. And then this one. Again, they're all color coordinated. Yours might be a little worn out, but just showing you. White handle. I guess they're both white handle, but yeah, you'll be able to do it anyway. The inside connector will tell you which is which. Now that all these are sunk down, we can flip this over and sink it onto our pegs. If you open your tip 'em, you'll notice that I have already upgraded mine to a 4-gauge wire right here. If you want to, you can use the factory wire if you still have it, or whatever you'd like to do. I'm upgrading to all this Stinger stuff, so might as well just do it. Do that. You can tuck it in and throughout the bottom right here, and there you go. From there, I have all this wiring, which I will clean up later. I'm gonna zap strap and keep that all nice and tidy up there once I get the battery and stuff. But for right now, I'm not even gonna screw this down because I'm gonna do that later. Now I have everything I need to on this electrical side. This is also gonna get zap strapped out here. Let's go ahead and disassemble this. Hold on to those if you can. And let's see if and how these ones are held in. I believe this is just hooked on. So let's see. First things first though, we probably have to lift this. And let's see. This is into that. This lifts forwards. Of course I put that inside. There we go. Just needs to be shaken a little bit. All right, is this hooked onto something? This one's stuck on something. Let's see. Oh, radiator cap. Of course. Okay, let's see. Now will it come off? There. And look at that. We have the stock radiator. From here, we need to flip it around and take everything off of the radiator. Or, since everything's attached to the radiator, pull out these two bolts. We'll take the radiator off of this, and then we can disassemble the other pieces that are on it. After you've gone ahead and done that, go ahead and take these off, take the tranny cooler off, and take the AC condenser and put them off to the side. That way we don't have to worry about those getting ruined. Go ahead, if you'd like, admire Radiator for the last time, because this is going bye-bye. And then, whether you grab this Jeep Speed Shop one or I grab the Mishimoto one, we're gonna get ready to install our new Mishimoto radiator. Now, as painful as it is, we have to cover it up. So, depending on who makes yours, I know Mishimoto comes with new screws, so I think I'm gonna just tighten these up. Not gonna go too ham, just tighten them up nice and tight with a little bit of red Loctite on each of them. So that way I know they won't come out. So, go ahead, grab your AC condenser first and cover up that cymbal. Put that red Loctite on there, took my ratchet, and literally with one hand just like this, don't go wrenching it. It is aluminum. You are going to wreck it if you go ham with this. So that's why I'm saying one hand with a little bit of red Loctite, you're good. Let's pull up our next one. Well, there you go. It's all bolted in here, as you can see. Again, no real torque spec for me. Just crank them down with that red Loctite with one hand. Even these guys, I didn't bother switching those to the Mishimoto screws. What's the point? Just to go over our screws once more. We got this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So 5 on the first piece, and then use the 2 existing screws and the one right here. The reason why I use the existing is because these are just tie nuts. You're not going to redo any of those. And look at these. We got some extra screws here, which I'm sure we'll use later. But for right now, we don't need them. Put them off to the side and go bolt this up to that little frame piece. Make sure you transfer these sponges from your old one onto here. This holds this nice and tight to that frame piece over there. You can choose which way you want to do it. You can either A, slide them onto here, or B, put them onto there and then slide it on. And then you have your 2 bolts ready. Slide those in and put the 2 bolts in. Well, take a look at that. That looks awesome. As you can see, my tranny cooler started leaking a little bit, but only out of the holes, of course. Now that we've got that and that's all good, next thing, if you want to, oh yes, tighten these up. These are technically 9 Newton meters. So pull out your torque wrench if you want and put them to 9, or just tighten them up real good with the ratchet, but nothing crazy. If you do, you're gonna break it. Especially if you look at the length of those bolts and how tiny they are, they won't handle a whole lot of stress. Now from this point, if you don't have the truck Hemi, you have the car Hemi. You could bolt up the radiator shroud, because this one will work with the 3.6 on there. Now, I've been told this might not work for this one. And the reason why is because, unfortunately, the water pump, see that nub on the water pump? Apparently it might stick out too far and go right into the fan blade. So what I might end up doing is just sliding it in the way it is back into the Jeep and just putting a couple, like the 2 top bolts in. And I bought another fan. I'm gonna try them both out and I'm gonna see which one works best. I checked it out. I had actually put it up there and did some measuring, pulled it back off. I don't think either of my fan options are gonna work, but stay tuned later in the video and you will see it. You'll probably see me do some other things first. All right, let's show you how to make a fuel line. So right here, you can see I have the tape still on here. What I did is I marked it out, put some painter's tape, and cut it with the sharpest device you have. For me, it was I have a 0 gauge wire cutter, and I used it on here. Not technically used for this. That's why I didn't show you me using it. Either way, next thing is after you do that, we want to make sure that hole's completely round. So go ahead. If you buy some of the kits, they come with this tool, and we just want to inspect, make sure that that's okay. Now that we do, or have as I should, you're going to take this and work it over. Now, it can be fun, but work it over the tape. I'll show you why after, but we've got to get this over here. Once you get it lined up and sort of turn it and just get it worked out past the tape if you can. Once you've peeled it past the tape, go ahead and take it off. Show you why here in a sec. But see how it kind of unravels a little bit? You don't want that to happen when you have the, when you're trying to put the fitting over. Next, you'll see that flare. We want to make sure it's pushing into the jacket. So go ahead and seal this up so it's nice and flush. Now what some people will do, just even against the concrete, that. And again, you want to make sure it's coming up flush, or as flush as it can be, to that silver piece in here. The closer it is, the better seal you're going to get. All right, let's take a look. You know what? That's looking pretty darn good to me. Okay, from there, use this once again. It's always good to do that because then you can make sure that it's not going to try and crease and bend over. It kind of just gets it ready. All right. Next thing, we've got our olive on here. We have to slide this piece in here and make it flush. So work it in here, just like that. It's gonna be a nice tight fit. And then, next thing, a little bit of silicone lubricant. Just like that. Let's move this back up and start threading it on. After you started threading it, put your fitting inside the vise. I always tape the jaws for this. If you're doing more fittings, you'll probably have a special piece that goes on your vise, which has a metal alligator style piece on it. I've only taped up my vise jaws. This doesn't work the best. It's just the way I'm doing it today. In a perfect man's world, I'd have the other piece. Now, the reason why I start like this, see how I grab the end of this fitting? Now I can keep a proper hold for when I start turning this. And that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna make sure I have this started first. Try and make sure we're not cockeyed. And as I'm applying a bit of pressure, okay, perfect, we're started. Now I hold my line in and start turning. And what's gonna happen is this is gonna start to close and pinch that barb on the inside. Now at some point, see, now the line's trying to turn. What I'll end up doing is I'll actually end up switching my position with this. But let's do this a little bit more. And then, well, actually I'm almost there. Might as well just continue going. Sometimes it'll stop and it'll try to roll the hose. Drives me nuts, but how I get around that is I actually pop this fitting over to this side and then I tighten the tip. There we go. Button it up right against here. After that, we've got a nice solid fitting. If you want to, you can try and do a blow pass test, but even if it passes that, doesn't really mean a lot. You can also do the yank test. If you're yanking on it and she's not coming out, that's another good sign. So that's how I made the fuel line. Don't forget, when you're putting your quick lock fitting on and you go to put it on here, make sure you soak this with silicone as well, so that way it screws on nice and tight and you don't strip the threads. Keeps it nice and lubricated. The old line there, cut it apart. It was off the low pressure return line. As you can see, I cut it right there with a hose cutter. And then now I'm just taking a hacksaw and I'm just taking off that old coupler. And we'll show you what it looks like underneath after I get it. Just don't take your thumb. I might be able to get it off from here. I'm almost there. But you can see what all you're doing is you're cutting through this connector without going into the black pipe. You know what? Sometimes it's just easier this way. Check this out. As soon as you peel that off, you've got the perfect connector. Awesome. So the next thing to do is make sure our new power steering line for our power steering cooler can slide onto here. This is going to be one end, and of course the other end will go to the other low pressure side, which will go from the power steering cooler back into the reservoir. Another tip, replace the O-ring on the tip. Get a few of these because you're going to need them. Take a look at that. All I did is I lubricated a bit of the fitting and slid it right in. Next, if you want to, just to make sure this low side doesn't ever get pop off, if I were you, go ahead and buy some of those small little clamps. Put a clamp on here. So this is our old Jeep reservoir. It's going to be sitting right here. And how that's going to happen is this Jeep speed shop bracket will be right here. That will sit on it and hold it. And then I just have to get a line that goes from this fitting, that'll go right here. I already have a hose for it. I just need the fitting. So by that fitting to a barb, that will go up to the bottom of this. This will come to our power steering cooler, which will feed into the top, out to the bottom to there, and, or well, it doesn't really matter, but it's gonna push fluid up and through it, and then over to this one. After it gets over there, goes down to here, goes to the high side, which goes from the bottom here to that other coupler down there. Got a can of red. As you can see, that's raw steel, so you need to paint it. So I'm gonna use some caliper paint since this stuff is super durable. After she's set and dried, take a look at that. Looks good to me. You can see it brings out all those little red connectors. That's why I ended up going red and I didn't have a problem with it. Gotta say, like it. So, as you can see, this line is going there. This is going over here. Once we're done, these two will fold around. I'll cut this in half and it'll go to my new power steering cooler. And once we get that high side done, and then this converter to this, so it'll convert from right here to right there, bam, we'll be good. And again, I'll show you those connectors. So again, for our fuel, I just wanted to show you. Look how cool that looks. So that's the new braided line. Let's climb underneath and see. It took two of these fittings, the 640853. Hey, Mika? So if we come underneath here, you can see our new fitting down here. Now, see this white one right here? This is for that little valve that is up top, which would go on the battery box right here. It's that little valve that clicked onto here, and then the white piece connected onto here, and another little piece connected onto here, and went onto right here, from which I capped off. It's right actually under my alternator, but my alternator power. But I've capped it off, and the alternator wire is actually holding the cap on really tight because I'm deleting that. If you're in California, you're not allowed to do that. And other places where they have the emissions check. So make sure you don't follow my lead and delete that like I am. If you have that, you could run another braided line if you wanted, right from this canister down to that white line. You would need a barb AN fitting rather than the press-ons like I just had. So either way, you're not going to see me show any more of this because I'm not using it. I'm just going to delete it in software. So with this big long line on the 3.6, Something they don't tell you have to do is you have to hack this old line apart. Now when you hack it apart, you'll notice when you look inside, it's two separate lines. So make sure when you hack it, take a look here, see how there's two nubs? You have to make sure you do it right here, because we're gonna pull this off of here. And you have to hack it after the nub. You have to leave the short line going through here. Very, very important. Again, I'm going to show you this because I just don't want anyone to get this wrong. We're leaving the small line, but you have to hack this one. And then afterwards, I'm going to try this with a pair of vice grips. I'm going to grab one side here, and separate this so we can slip this out. This piece is a nightmare to get off. I ended up hacksawing one of the edges off and then just working it out. I tried separating it with the vise. I tried everything. I could not get it to open up. So like I said, I went as close as I could while leaving a distance to the tube. You don't want to accidentally hacksaw your tube, otherwise you're, well, completely out of luck. So after you do that, now we have the tube free, and now you would use the new Jeep Speed Shop line, and you'll see it's got a little holder on it to actually hold that new line in, which is right there. So make sure that gets put in there when you slide it in. So this hole that goes to the bolt wasn't big enough to slide through. I had to drill it out to I think this is a 5/16. Either way. So that bolt back there is listed at about 8 Newton meters if it's the one that I'm looking at. So what I ended up doing was I actually just went with my hand, got it nice and tight, and I checked. After I got to where I thought was tight, I checked and it was a little bit past 8 Newton meters. So just make sure it's nice and tight and up there. So I had that leftover pipe right there with the little white barb on it, hacked the tip off. So I have this barb, now I have the red and the black and this little cap. I'm gonna slide the cap on the hacked off part and it fits super tight. Then go under the vehicle, under that fuel system piece, and slide that barb in with the cap and lock this in so it blocks off that old purge valve kinda that was down there. Again, that's just up here. So again, that's our fuel line. This is that little white purge valve. Right there is where I squeezed on the vacuum cap, and it is on tight. I'll probably still, for the heck of it, might use some contact cement or something on here just so it never comes out. But then this slips on. Now, I could just cut this off and then cap it, but you know what? Why not just leave it there just in case I have to one day put it back on for some crazy reason. Then from right here, all you do is slip this back in and lock it in, and that ain't ever gonna come out. And then if you can find the safety, you have to find the right safety. I'm gonna see if I can find the one that was on here. You can slip a safety on, but I mean, really, that's never gonna come out. You can turn it, but that's about it. Okay, then this can just get tucked up here. Strap it later if I so wish. Fuel is completed. As you can see, I'm looking at this from under the Jeep because I climbed underneath to put these lines on. I found it much easier to reach them and put them on. So again, side that goes from the firewall from the Jeep Speed Shop line goes right here. And then the side that's going to go to the condenser is right here. And you can see this is the silver tip and silver tip. The other side that goes to the condenser side for that second line, it will be without the silver piece and without the bleeder that is on there. So once you have those up there, put these bolts on and crank them down to 23 Newton meters. Now again, it's going to be fun. You might have to bend the line a little bit more depending. I had to actually give mine a little bit more of a bend to be able to get in there because these fit precision. Like they fit in there and then you put the nut on. But like I said, wanted to show you this. See how it comes between the block right here? That's how you have to do it. It has to come on this side of the block Don't have it on the back or the front side in between here. Have it on the side of the timing cover, pretty much. But it comes on the front side of the head. And then that's ready to go. After I mounted the transmission, the power steering pump came up quite a bit. So I bet you if I still had that reservoir, I could have hooked it up and it would have worked perfectly fine. Oh well, it's what I get for trying to mess with things before I landed the transmission. Unfortunately, I was waiting for that plate for so long, I just wanted to get ahead of the game. So if you might not have to do this, so that's why I'm editing this in. If you still want to use the Jeep Speed Shop bracket and relocate the power steering like this, go ahead and watch this part. Dorman 47095. If you're using the 2012 Hemi pump, it comes with this adapter, which would be connected like this. What I did is I bought that. I bought a assorted set of O-rings. And if you cut it, check this out. It's a tight squeeze fit in and bam, we now have a nipple on here. So now I can do some sort of S-hose or come around here and up and over into there. And they're both 3/4, so they'll use the same hose. I'm gonna modify that bracket I have down there. I'm gonna wiggle this out, but it's a nice tight fit, which is awesome. So like I said, next thing to do is I'll show you afterwards. I'm gonna modify that bracket to hold this in nice and tight in there so it won't back out. Next thing I did is I went through my washers. I found one and I drilled it out. It had to be a big fender washer. And then I made it so it just squeezed over the tip of this. So that way it's gonna sit like this. So when I put the bracket on, like this, it's gonna squeeze it just like it did the reservoir into that hole and keep it sealed with that O-ring. So make sure this is nice and cleaned up, there's no metal shavings, and go bolt it back onto the pump. Well, it ain't the prettiest, but it'll work. That's locked in here, so that way it keeps this nice and sealed. Put another clamp on here. Might even trim those up a bit more, but as you can see, sits right here. Gonna clear our pulley, and we're clearing now right there. So now that that's all cleared up, the other thing I quickly did is I moved these riders right here for the power steering hose. So that way when the engine moves, it's not gonna chafe the metal, which it shouldn't, but I'll keep an eye on it. Now that that's all there, this one's sitting right here, ready to go. I've just got this one covering our other AC. I'm gonna go find a bolt. I'm gonna put that one in here, so that way that should wrap really the front up for right now. I'm not gonna do the radiator hoses until I actually have the radiator in here, so that way I can measure and try and work about. To get the transmission underneath, I had to put in some 7-ton jack stands there, or those might be 6-ton, and then put the tranny on a flat bed, slide it underneath the vehicle. Now I get to prop the transmission up one side at a time and then put it back on the tranny jack and bring it under the motor. Lots of fun. It's just impossible to get it. I would highly suggest bolting this to the engine before you put it into the vehicle. You might have to remove your front bumper to do so, but trust me, saves you a lot of headache. I highly recommend you mount your transmission before. As you can see, I had to do, that's why I didn't show you guys what I did. I basically had to put some 2x4s to get the right angle because this wasn't working 100%. Got the angle, had to put a ratchet strap around the frame right here so that way I could ratchet the engine down towards the transmission. Then I got the first dowel in, then I got this second dowel in, sunk up the transmission. Well, not sunk it, but you know, put the bolts in and then wiggled and got it nice and tight. And then I've cinched in the 2 end bolts from down here. Now I'm gonna throw some red Loctite on the 4 that I'm gonna put up top and get those. I'll give you some torque spec in a sec just in case you're gonna do this, but I have to warn you, you have to jack your Jeep up so high to get your transmission underneath, or you have to do like I did with that cart. And then if you have 2 people, you can always lift it onto the transmission jack and put it up. But just be very, very careful. Once you get it up, like I said, up in here, you literally just have to jack it up and in spot and get it really creative with how you're gonna pull everything off for yourself. Once we get it up here though, next thing I did is I quickly put in the transmission mount right here. What I did is I put the bolts in, a little bit of red Loctite on all four, and cranked them down to 35 foot-pounds. Next thing I want to do actually is I want to put the cross member back in, so I need to take these bolts out of here. I put them up here so I wouldn't forget which ones went where. So pull those out. I'm going to slide the cross member in here and then flip it up and see how close we are to lining up. But I'll probably put the first bolt in here and then I'll slide it up. So I used red Loctite and I did the two bottom ones first, 50 foot-pounds, and then the last four along the top of the bell housing, 50 foot-pounds, just in case you're crazy like me and you're doing the transmission afterwards. After we've done that, I want to go ahead and do a couple more things. Another thing I did, which I didn't show, is I attached a ratchet here to straighten the motor out while I'm doing this. So that way I could get the engine to straighten out a bit before I put the spacers in, because Jeep Speed Shop totally forgot to send me spacers for my engine mount. To get the transmission mount and cross member to work, I slipped that first bolt in. Didn't put any foot-pounds, just simply slipped the bolt through and put the nut on the tip. Couple threads on. Came over here. Next thing I did, squeezed in by pushing over the engine mount. Got it in, tightened the bolt up. It lined up the second hole. I put that in, lined up the second hole, put that in. Now, as you can see, it was actually sitting on the edge. From there, I was able to wiggle and get that cross member in there. Now I'm just going to continue to tighten these bolts up, and then I'll get my jack, or a second jack, in here, lift that up and put the bolts in. From there, I can take the tranny jack out. Was having trouble lining it up, so I put my crow's foot right here, hammered it in a bit, was able to slip this bolt in after that. Now I'm gonna pull the crow's foot out, put the next bolt in, and get all four of those in loosely. Get those three bolts obviously on loosely, and I'll give you a torque spec here in a sec. So all these bolts, this one, when I put it in, the nuts in here, box wrench on this side, wrench on this side, they're all 35 foot-pounds. So just go 35, 35, 35, 35, and go all the way to all those bolts that you just did, including, if you didn't know, these were 35s up here when we did those. Yes, you can have a good laugh. I have to undo the drive shaft from there, and then I'll have to take that and put the drive shaft through. I'm not taking this back out. It was such a pain. If you can see that white tag, I just plugged in the case, the transfer case, just from behind, went up and over, plug that in. Don't forget to plug it in. And then I'll plug in the transmission afterwards. These are all the O2 sensors. Sort those out after. Transmission plug's already on the other side. And then we'll have our two shifters. This one right here, sync on the tip. And then just like when you removed it, you just squeeze it in so those two little metal clips go back in just like they did on the 3.6. Now that's set. We're gonna come over here. This one has to come, as we know, to the transfer case, and it basically clips in pretty much the same. Let's see if I can show you here. This just goes up into here. And after you clip that in, then do just like we did with this. Sink it back in. Next, take your drive shaft bolts, put them through, or well, before you put it through, sink your drive shaft up, line it up, and then you can torque these ones. I would put them all in nice and snug, and then torque them down to 15 foot-pounds on these little bolts. And if you want, add a little bit of Loctite. I'd probably only use blue. If you use red on these and you got to pull them out later, it could be a little bit fun. To get your drive shafts in, go ahead and put the two skids on, the longer one obviously in the back, shorter one up front. Crank these bolts down to 35 foot-pounds if you want. Throw a little bit of blue Loctite if you so wish. This hose right there, this is why I hate lighting, by the way. Up here where my hand is, if you keep going up there, you'll be able to feel that barb that's just by that drive shaft end. It's up there. You can see kind of on the camera, but not really. You're gonna slide that tube back on and thread this back up into the engine bay and just leave it up there. After we do that, go ahead and just double check all your drive shaft bolts again. The ones on this side, again, you're gonna do to 20 Newton meters. And if you come over to this side, if you took out those 4 big bolts out of here, these big bolts are 81 foot-pounds. Next thing to do, feed your tranny dipstick all the way up. Once it feeds up and into that corner over there, I would already have this. See how I've already got it loose? All you do is you squeeze it down into it, tighten that bolt and keep that nice and tight so that way it seals up. It'll be almost impossible for me to give you good light on. See the angle of this connector? So it's got to go in like that. You'll feel it sink in. And then you should be able to put minor pressure on it, turn this, and see how it's sinking in? That's what you want. But I'm gonna put some more pressure on it with my other good hand, and that has to sit flush. So if it doesn't, check for debris and dirt. You don't want to bend pins or anything like that. Throw a 21 on an extension, and we're gonna turn the crank. As you do, we're gonna line up in there. See if I can show you. It's probably never going to show you the threads, but on that flex plate, aha, you actually can kind of see the threads if it decides to focus. There. See, I have both sets of threads lined up on that. The reason I was able to do that is I turned the crankshaft with the 21, which turns the flywheel or the flex plate. After it turns, you can line up both. Make sure you line up both. Now, next thing to do is throw a little bit of red Loctite on those bolts and put them in only to the plate. Do not put any pressure, no cranking, no nothing, because the first round you need to just tighten them in without putting any pressure on the plate. Otherwise, it'll sit cockeyed and you won't be able to get the rest of the bolts in. So just cinch the heads to the plate and do not put any pressure at all or any torque on that plate on the first round. So put the first 2 bolts in, turn it, put the next 2 bolts in, turn it, put the next 2 bolts in. Now you've got 6 in. After that, just add a couple turns at a time. Couple turns, turn, couple turns, couple turns. Once it gets tight, then you're gonna add your torques back to the factor. But do not go cranking them to torque, otherwise you will jam up the plate and you won't be able to turn it. After about the 4th round, you'll notice that it's actually tight. Once they actually cinch down, they're tight. They're not, and you can feel that pressure of real tightness. What I ended up doing is just, on the last round, cranking them down to about 35 foot-pounds. And you do that with this, but depending, what I had to do is use some adapters to bring it down to a small one so I could fit it in between the oil pan and whatnot. So that's why I went to 35. I think actual torque spec that I read was about 30 for the nag 1. So what I ended up doing is 35, and it's gonna work good enough for me. And that's why I also used some Loctite. Make sure you use Loctite also because it lubricates the threads. And always, if you can, use new fasteners. They are cheap. I think I got those for like $1 something each bolt from the dealership. It's really not that expensive. So for the starter, I just did 50 foot-pounds on each of these bolts. A little bit of Loctite because the last thing you want is your starter coming off and, well, wrecking your flex plate and having to separate the transmission from the engine. Now this bolt up here actually has a little spring washer, so I'm not gonna really give you torque spec. Just make sure you tighten it down and don't snap this stud. You really don't have to go that tight with it because of that spring washer. It's gonna hold it on. Next thing to do also is plug this plug in, and then we'll route these wires a little later so that way they're nice and clean and away from the manifold. Also might run a little bit of exhaust protector on it later so that way when the manifolds are bolted up, the heat will not destroy these wires. Don't forget to plug your solenoid in. Pretty easy. Grab your wrench. I'm gonna throw a little bit of Permatex thread sealant on here so that way it seals up nice, and just crank these down and get them nice and sunk up. And then you'll have to possibly just re-bend the lines a little bit with your hand to make them work with the new bell housing. Well, after you've tightened those lines up, I mean, really, all you have to really do now is clean up some wiring that you have from down here. And the only thing left to really do down here is that, which some people will just get a gooseneck where it kind of like bends sideways because they're worried about their oil filter getting smashed up. But I actually have a different kit, which I'm going to show you. We're going to install that. It's from Transadapt, and it's going to relocate my oil filter over anywhere I want. This is the kit, not you, Mika, but you're still super cute. Do you want to show them the kit? As you can see, this is the kit, 1127 from Transadapt. And as Mika's showing you right now, what we get is a little plate right here, an O-ring, and then this, which gets screwed on. Or well, this is actually, sorry, this is the part that gets screwed on. This is the plate from which we can mount anywhere, and our oil filter attaches to here afterwards. So that way I can literally put this anywhere. Unless Mika eats it first. If you're going to use this kit, first sink this O-ring into here. And if you want, I actually have some assembly lube. I'm going to rub a little bit of assembly lube on here, just so that way I know it'll run smoothly and lock up without chipping the O-ring, and then simply screw this onto where your oil filter goes. Go to both sides, paint these threads up with some liquid thread sealant. You could wrap Teflon. I prefer liquid thread sealant. Just like I said, paint it up so it's nice and done, and crank these in here with a 7/8 wrench. Make sure you put the lid back on, paint it up like that, and go ahead and quickly screw it in. Make sure there's none inside. Whether you have assembly lube or not, you can lube up these ends here. And then what I like to do is slip in one side first. I slip these in and I'll screw them into the bottom with the hose attached. You don't have to do this. I just wanted to make sure these are fully compressed in. Make sure that they squish all the way down to the plastic. And for extra security, if you want, you could throw on a couple clamps, but these are so tight on there that they should hold no problem. So again, we have that side already done. I'm going to hop in underneath and I'm going to hook this up to the side that I've already screwed onto where the oil filter used to be. And then I'm going to show you some location techniques to make sure you don't mount it in the wrong location. So you can see I've screwed it in up here, and then I've put my hoses on. Now, things you want to avoid. Well, this is an axle. This is going to move up and down. So I had to make sure this was going to clear my hoses, which it is. It's going to clear my transmission hoses, and it's going to clear these oil lines now. And then I'm going to bring it around and over here, and it's going to be on a bit of an angle. Now, this joint will end up here, but I'm leaving this on a bit of an angle, so no matter what, this will not squish these lines because this fits nice and tight up in here with the lines in the starter. Very important. And this knuckle right here will act like protection just in case any rocks fly into the vehicle. And then I'll have a little canister filter right there. Best part about it is when I drain it, the lowest part is going to be out this way, and it'll drain away from this knuckle. Very important because right there, it would drain onto everything right here, every piece of equipment, and there's a chance this could come up and smack it dead on the corner of the filter. So as you can see, if I move this over, there's no chance of that happening now. And I might still spin this just a wee bit just to have a tiny bit more clearance, but other than that, if this were to come up, it wouldn't hit. Where I drilled, I shot with a little bit of rubber underguard, also because my drill bit wandered a little bit, so it scratched the paint. Best to do that just so it doesn't, as you can see, this is just a little bit of surface rust, but if you don't do that to those, they could rust up too. It's just preventative measure. You don't have to do that. I mean, especially if you're into the beauty stuff, because I don't know, maybe you're just worried about someone looking at your undercarriage and going, yuck. So filter starts there, goes now to right there, and it'll have a mini right there, and it'll keep it off to the side, which is perfect, and it still will be guarded. Super important because you don't want something to, of course, take it out. Impressive, eh? So as you can see, Jack is fully up as I'm looking into Mika's ear, and I just wanted to see where it was going to come up to, and yeah, it's nowhere close. So now I know for sure. So the filter you need is a PH8A or one that cross-references to this one. It is a much bigger filter, just a warning. I'm going to throw a little bit of assembly lube once again, or if you have oil, throw a little bit of used oil on the rim or new oil and go ahead and screw it on. Like I said, she eats up a little bit more room. The smaller canister probably ended right here on the Hemi. This one ends over here, so it's definitely going to eat up a little bit more oil, just for you to consider. So if you bought 5 liters before, you might need 5 liters in a quart now. Let's go throw some oil in it. But that's how you install this TransAdapt kit. But I threw 6 liters in it, and it's just about halfway through the safe marker on my dip. So that means that I'm probably going to have to go grab another liter for when I start it. But either way, yeah, that's where I'm at. And that's how you do the TransAdapt kit. What I ended up doing is using the factory 3.6 hose. As you can see, not a whole lot of room in here, but the engine really isn't moving much. So I'm probably going to end up fastening this over here as tight as I can. As you can see, I rebent the factory hose. So all I did is I put it in the vise and played with it a little bit and bent it the best I could, tied this end in, brought it over here. I'm going to drop in the radiator, see how it fits. Again, I'll probably get something custom made later, but unfortunately, I was trying to get something custom made. I went to about 20 different shops locally, and no one would do it. They just said they didn't have the ends and all this other stuff, or they said that they didn't want to take on the liability of making a power steering hose. Kind of sucks, but you know what? It is what it is, and if I can make this work for now, then I'll make it work for now. It looks like it's going to clear the AC, so free it shall be. I'm going to try and drop in the radiator again now. Just slide it in and throw a couple bolts in and see how our clearances are. All right, just lifted the radiator in here. When you do, feed your transmission lines through the bottom there. They have to come out through the corner there. Makes it fun, so make sure that you're working them out over to the corner, and then they come up through here. They're going to rub. It's really hard not to. So after you get it in there, just put these 4 top bolts in first. As you can see, I just lightly put those in. And then I think the first thing I'm going to actually do is just throw a little bit of Loctite on here. Make sure you put the little gaskets on your trans cooler lines again. Replace them if possible. And after you do that, just throw a little bit of blue Loctite and cinch this down and give it a good yank to make sure it's in there. Just don't go He-Man and strip it out. So the bolts you have to tighten up are here. The 2 on the back side, which if you remember, you just go in through here, 1 here, and I think the last one, yeah, I went in through the bottom there. And then don't forget these little fender ones right here. Those are the 2 that are probably the same color as your body color. So in total, you've got 5 on each side, 10 bolts. Go ahead, throw some Loctite on and crank them down. After you go ahead and crank those down, you can start attaching these. Again, throw a little bit of Loctite on your bolts, and then you can tie down the AC and stuff like that. I don't usually do any sort of torque spec. I just crank these guys down so the gaskets squish, and I usually throw a little tiny bit of Loctite on the threads. That way I know they'll stay. So I think from here, all I'm going to quickly do is tie on my AC lines. And then after that, I will show you when I add in the power steering cooler, which will go right here. And that's what this tube is for. So I'll feed that in through here. And I think I'm going to mount it pretty center, so that way it can get the most of the fan when I mount the new Camaro fan up. I did these ones at 23 Newton meters. If you want to do this one, you could go to at least 23 Newton meters. Just make sure those gaskets are crushed. Once you get these all to 23, should be good. And like I said, next we need to grab our new power steering cooler, and I would suggest mounting it right here if you're doing the Camaro fan, so that way it's kind of central again. You could mount it in front of here, but then that's 3 that it has to get through. That's why I'm thinking down here might be best. Once we mount that down there, we can run our line, which is sitting right here. I've just got to make sure I have enough line to get there. If not, I'm going to go as far over as this line lets me. So we have our hose here and our hose coming from the other low end side. Remember, this has to be the low pressure hose. So after we have this, now we can mount it directly center, which I'm guessing is right here, right where the latch is. So I'm going to center it on here. Make sure these hoses are cut so that way it can sit center. And then I'll show you how I mount it. So with these clips right here, put these off to the side. You're going to slide this through the fins on one side of it. I'm going to flip that up, slide this all the way through. It'll start poking out the other side. When it does that, I slip the other end on, which is one of these. You just slip it on so it nice and grips up against it, and then trim off the part that sticks through. Look at that, looks nice and clean. It's basically centered right there. You come over top, you see those are still sticking out. I'm gonna go grab my plastic cutter and I'm gonna just simply cut the extra off, and that should be good. Now that our power steering cooler is installed, as you can see, you can now start to feed that harness up and back through here, up and along through here. There will be the one split off, which comes down to this sensor, comes over to here, plug in your airbag, plug in your horn. Over here, you've just got the airbag, and don't forget to thread your clip back down here to plug in your side lights. This is your, of course, your fan, but that's gonna be changing a bit for me because I have to use the Camaro fan because of the fact that I'm using a truck Hemi. Even though it looks like a car because of the intake, that was the intake that was on it, I switched to the car intake. And then from here, we have this once again. We have the same pigtail. Don't forget that there's two pigtails over here that you have to plug into. Don't forget to plug into your marker light because you have that marker light that's over here as well for your fender. And yeah, the horn and, oh, and the AC. Don't forget to plug your AC in. I think that's about it. Just make sure they're all plugged in. That's basically it. Next thing I'm gonna do is actually pop my headlights back in and pop my front grille back in. But also, see this? These are all wires that I ran through last time. I need to quickly clean these up with some tie wraps, and then I'll quickly just tie my headlights back in. Tying your headlights back in, I'm sure anyone could do. It's just make sure that it sits in those grooves that you have. You'll see they only sink in one way. You'll go to turn it and it won't fit. So make sure it sinks in, and then you put the bezel in the only way it fits as well. Put the 4 screws in, make sure you plug it in. Your connector doesn't look like this. If you want to see what I did, I have one on waterproofing your connectors for the Jeep. I have aftermarket headlights and they kept burning out the connectors, so I switched to waterproof Deutsch connectors. Also, this is the power steering kit I used. It came with all those little attachments, including the hose. Definitely a cool little kit. It's not expensive. Got it off of Amazon. That's the part number from Hayden. One last thing to note to you as well. You'll see where the power steering cooler is there. If you are worried about restrictions, just remember, if you have a winch, it is going to restrict it. That's going to be relying completely on what the fan can pull for heat out of it. Just a quick tip. That's the JK fan. This is a brand new Camaro fan I got off Rock Auto. So locally, I went to the dealership to buy it. That fan locally was $850. I got it off Rock Auto for $350, and it's a GM original, still a Spall fan. And best thing about this whole thing, same connector. This one matches up with this one. So don't have to change any connectors. Next thing to do is you'll see the different fins and stuff like that. You might have to alter the fins a little bit so it slips in proper, and that way you can mount it up. Well guys, if you take a look here, I had to trim a lot of this fan out. So much so that I forgot to turn my microphone on. So if you take a look here, I'm showing you exactly just how far. I had to saw even as deep as I turned it sideways, and there was this line that went all the way down in the mold, and I actually cut along that line just to get more clearance, because as you're going to see later on, it fits super tight. So I cut off every single tab off this thing, and as you can see, I cut all the way down that line, and it's just enough that that fan will not hit the radiator. I literally went as close as I could. And as you can see how there's those screws on the bottom and the top? I left those because those actually reach over top of the radiator. So that wasn't a big deal. The reason why I had to cut those sides is actually because of the welds of the Mishimoto radiator. It wouldn't clear the welds, so I actually notched it out so it would fit around the welds because of how darn close this fits. Now I have to create my own brackets. So as you can see, I'm showing you, I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but I'm going to do it. So after everything, I ended up finding these drop brake line brackets that I got with my lift kit. And these things ended up working great. I had to cut the welded bolts off, but what it allows for is, as you can see, those are the top ones that I have as well. Or I have 4 in total. These ones ended up being perfect for being notched. I'm showing you I had some nuts and bolts and stuff, but I ended up just going off and using some plastic screws. And I mounted those brackets 4 inches off the bottom. Ended up working out really, really well. Slides into the notches, and that one's on a bit of an angle because I wanted it to sit in there, but the other side seemed a little higher. So it slides into those notches, and after it does so, then those 2 top pieces actually will bolt onto the radiator and keep it locked in. Pretty sweet stuff. I kind of explain it right here. As you can see, that bolts in and then latches down, holding the plastic shroud down. But it's way easier if I show you exactly what I'm talking about. So let's jump to the next clip. As you can see right here, this is what I mean. I tied that bolt in, and look at how that notch that used to be there for my brake line holds that plastic shroud nice and tight down on the radiator. Like literally, it is rock solid. So I put that in there, tightened that up, and then on the other side, which I'll show you in a sec, it locks down as well. But this is literally fits into that little notch perfect. And here we go to the other side. Take a look at this. That one I again put down so it's flat facing down and holding right there. Tighten our bolt down, and that isn't moving at all. And again, you can see the pulley, how close it is. It's a good thing these engine mounts hold really, really tight, because when I zoom in, you're going to see there's like a 1/4 of an inch gap in there. And that's the most I could get out of that Camaro fan. It looks like there's something in between, but there isn't. It's literally just like a 1/4 inch. And I'm going to make you sick just because I moved the camera around so much. And as I'm showing you here, look at how little movement there is of that engine. That engine is rock solid in there. So only time will tell how well it does, but that is the only way I could get the clearance to do it. Well, after all that trimming, it was definitely worth it. As you can see, I literally cut it so this could rest against here if it had to. It didn't have to. It's resting against just the sides right here. But still, I have that just in case. And wow. I heard it was close, but that's close. It's like a 1/4 of an inch off. But you know what? If it works, it works. And that BDS brake kit really did work out great. Again, this is a BDS brake drop kit. So I used the bottoms that would be used on the rear down there as the new hooks, and it mounts on the outside. And then up here is the front ones, which are the really cool skulls. And I put those up here. I could have that opposite. These could be the rears for all I know. But either way, it worked. And it locks in, and it's so solid. Can't complain. Next thing I like to do, there isn't a whole lot of threads on these plugs. So I like to, holy smokes, if I can get it open, take a little bit of liquid thread sealant. Go ahead, holy smokes, that thing is caked. No, you don't need that much on there. I just like to clean the brush off a little bit. And then you can go and, unlike Loctite, I like to put about a 1/2 a thread on here. Halfway around the moon, as we call it. And then go ahead,
close this one up before you even put it in. You don't want your liquid thread lock, or not thread lock, but sealant to go out. Go ahead and put it in the hole. I highly suggest getting one of these pumps. All you do is you stick that end inside your bottle. Now that's MTL. If you want to, you can just use ATF +4 for this transfer case. Either way, and you'll see this has a locking tip. Last but not least, crank that skid guard back on there, and it's 35 foot-pounds, or go until you're happy with one hand. Remember, never two hands. These things are just riv nuts. You could rip them right out. So I would suggest just doing the 35 foot-pounds if you have a torque wrench. I cleaned out my transmission pretty good for when I did the bell housing swap, and I did a filter and new pan gasket while I was doing it all. So now I'm gonna refill the transmission. I bought a bunch of MTL, so go ahead and start pouring. It says it takes about 2.5 liters, but don't forget your torque converter is gonna need some. What we're gonna do is set it to full on the dipstick, so that way when you start it and start running it through the gears and it feeds it into the torque converter, you'll add accordingly. You fill it up right through the dipstick hole. So pop out the dipstick. I have this little contraption I add to my funnel, and then it allows me to fill up the transmission. I put in about 1 liter and a little bit. It's just past the cold holes. So when you pull it out, you'll see cold and hot holes. I put it midway. The reason why when I start this, it's gonna force all that fluid into the torque converter and bring the fluid level down. And then we're gonna let it idle and get up to temperature. Really cool thing about the Jeep is it tells you the transmission fluid temperature right on the dash, so you can watch it go up to 180. Once it gets up to 180, you can pull the dipstick and take a look and add accordingly till it goes to the hot amount. Now, you don't have to wait till then. Once your vehicle's started, if you want to, you can have someone slip in and out of the different gears inside and then come out and just keep monitoring the dipstick and adding it accordingly. And once it warms up to 180, just make sure you aren't past those bubbles. So just make sure you keep levels on the dipstick. That's the best way to put it. To refill your power steering, what we need to do is take the lid off. You can give that a wipe if you'd like. Then go put your key into your car, put it to on. But as you can see, since we don't have a battery connected, it's fine. Nothing's gonna try and start. Just make sure you don't have your battery connected. Go put it to on. It's gonna unlock the steering wheel. Next thing you're gonna wanna do, just jack up the front of the Jeep. From this point, go ahead and pour some fluid in. Fill it up so that way we can see if there's any leaks. If there isn't, then we continue. And then what we start doing is moving the steering wheel to push fluid through the system, and the air will come out here until fluid comes out. What we'll do once we hear fluid come out of here, then we'll top it up and then move it, because you don't want any air in the system, but we want to know that fluid has gone through the entire system by not filling it up past here yet. I would fill it up just under that line and then start turning the steering wheel so that way it pushes fluid through the system. I'm using MTL. You can use ATF +4. That's what was in there before. And like I said, all I did is I topped it up to the minimum line. Come over here, move it. You'll start hearing air bubbles coming in and out of the system. And just keep moving it. Every once in a while, watch your fluid level, top it up. And at some point, you're gonna stop hearing the bloop, bloop, and you're gonna start hearing just smooth fluid going through. Just keep doing it. Don't fill this up to the max until the engine is on the ground. Keep it near the minimums. So that way when you put it down, the fluid level will balance out and then fill it up to max afterwards. Again, you might see some fluctuation once you start the vehicle itself. And that's why if you want to, one thing you can do is you start it with the cap off just to let, if there's any air bubbles, it'll escape. Or just leave it nice and sealed up, start it up, and play with your steering. If you don't feel any sloppiness or anything, then you don't have any air bubbles. That's all there is to that. So from here, I've already gone through a couple times and I've checked. I know we're doing good. So I'm gonna drop the Jeep back onto its feet, I guess, or tires. Hey, Mika? I don't know what to call it. And we're gonna
just check our limit, so that way when we start it later, we'll know we have good enough. And we didn't even use like half a bottle of MTL. It really wasn't that much. I bought 5 bottles of MTL to do the rear transfer case, the transmission, and the power steering. And so far, seems like it's gonna be more than enough. I'll let you know at the very end if it was. So as you can see, we've got some Mopac parts here. We're gonna be building some radiator pipes. So first thing I had to do is, of course, go pick up a bunch of random fittings. This is gonna be a 2-inch to 1.75, so that way we can downgrade that, so that way we can at least get it onto our water pump, because with the truck water pump, so again, this is for the truck Hemi, it has a 2-inch inlet, so we have to downgrade it. And then over here, we have a couple other fittings. I haven't opened this one because I'm probably not going to use it. And I've already been playing around and I grabbed these ones. The reason why I grabbed these, so I can show you how they're going to go. So here, we're going to have this one go on here. And then we're going to have this one go on here. And take a look at that. Once it's on, it'll look like this. I'll probably, maybe I'll leave it that way. That looks good too. And it has PW, which I'll aim up, make it look clean on both sides. It's either that or I'd make it go like this. I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave it like that. Either way, once you dry fit this stuff in here, which I already have, I know that I need a 3-inch piece in the center. So now I come over here and I cut off this metal pipe, a 3-inch piece. And that's what I'll do. I'll measure with the measuring tape, come down here, mark it, and then do the same with the other side. And Mika apparently is gonna help. So how to measure to see how much we want? Well, first thing I did is I slipped the tape measure in, and it's about 1.5 inches in to touch the inlet. So it has to be shorter than 1.5 inches. And then I also made sure that was nice and sunk on, and so was this one. So that way I know. And I know that once I put that piece of metal in there, it's just gonna sit just like this. It's just from sitting in the package, it's aiming a little bit down. So now that I can see that, I know that there's about 1 inch in between the two, and there's 1.5 inches here and 1.5 inches here. So if I want to keep it nice and close to the inlet, I would do 1.5 inches here, 1.5 inches here, inch in the center, and we would be at about, say about 4 inches if you wanted to, 1.5 inches, and then the inch in the center would be 4 inches. Now, if you didn't want to be touching right on that inlet, go ahead and bring it back a little bit, and you could, again, do 3, 3.5, whatever you want to do. I just want more coverage. That way there's more grip on this collar. Also, you can buy clips for these, or metal tie downs, but believe it or not, the guys said a lot of guys don't even run the clips on these because it fits so tight on here that they don't even see a benefit of it. But if you are really worried about leaks, you can buy the clips. I think they're about, from them, 10 to 16 bucks each. Just a warning. So what I did is I marked it on both sides at the same size. And then after I did that, put a marking all the way across and hit it with a hacksaw. Now I'm just gonna clean it with a little bit of a file, just because we don't want sharp edges to cut through our pipe. We'll slip it into both sides and slip it on and see how it looks.
When you're hitting it with a hacksaw, it does make the edges a little rough. So like I said, all we're doing is this, cleaning it up a bit. Mika. And like I said, even this edge, give it a little bit of a file. You just want to be able to feel this and not feel any sort of edge, so that way you're not going to catch your pipe.
You've cleaned your pipe up nicely. Make sure you go inside and clean it real nice. You don't want any metal shavings in there. And another thing, you might be wondering, why is he using a box on top of an old ice cream pail to cut it with a hacksaw? The reason why is so I could go slow and steady. After you go slow and steady when you start, then you can go a little bit more vigorous. If you put this in a vise and you don't have, and it slips or the protective equipment doesn't hold it properly and it starts moving up and down, you will scratch this like crazy. Right now you just have fingerprints on it. But like I said, this will show those scratches if you start scratching it up like crazy. Well, I set it up how I wanted it. As you can see, PW right here. So if you're looking at the side of the Jeep, you'll see it. And if you go on top of it, there's another one right here. Next thing to do is I'm going to throw, I think I will throw a couple clamps on here. We'll see which ones I go with. But as you can see, it's in here nicely. A little bit more adjusting probably to go. Just sink it down kind of thing. See how it wants to sit and play around with it just a bit more. But other than that, it's looking good. Now, the fun one, the bottom one. So I have to pick up one more of these elbows, I think. That's gonna be a really, really tight fitting one because we have to bring it down, elbow it, and then I have to use one of these to finish it off. I have a feeling I'm definitely gonna have to cut some piping to make that work.
So if we're looking down here, you can see what I've done there for the bottom pipe. So what I did is I started off the water pump with this 2-inch coupler. From there, I went to a 90-degree bend. If I could have, I would have done a J style because the J pipe would have been better, but unfortunately this company doesn't make a J pipe. So the only other thing you could have done is done a 45, done a U, and then gone back up. But I didn't want to get any closer to this axle. So what I did, once again, 2-inch coupler to a 90-degree bend, which goes to a 2-inch to 1.75 adapter, which then has a small piece of 1.75 stainless in there, which goes to a 45 onto the piece up there. And that's the best I could get to get over there while remaining the clearance. And then I put clamps on everything to crank them down, and that's how I made the bottom pipe. These are some of the part numbers for those little grommets and stuff that I used for the radiator pipes. Just keep in mind that if your Jeep sits a little different or anything, it might not line up exactly the same. So it's always good to try and find something local that you can play around with for each scenario. So this is exactly what's left of my intake from Mopar. I cut it completely apart, drilled a new sensor hole. That is where the inlet's going to be. I'm going to go assemble it. And this, by the way, is the greased up ring. I used a little bit of assembly lube just to get this to go on. So from here, this slips on to this end right here from which I cut. And then this will slide into the big coupler right there, which is 3.5 inches. This is going to drop it down to 3.25. I'll put a band clamp around it, and trust me, it's already super tight. So I'm not too worried. And then we'll slip the filter onto here, throw a bunch of clamps on it, and then I also have a hose that goes to there. Let's go throw it all in. Well, there you go. That's it installed. I threw this on here. This goes over to here. This is a 3 to, like I said, and that's a 3. It just barely squeezes in here. I had to cut this to length. And then this clamp, I'm gonna have to fix up. That clamp I'll have to fix up. It's just on this radiator pipe. I think I'm gonna end up clamping the radiator pipes. So I'm gonna buy these clamps. I've already had these clamps. I need to straighten these though. They just were rushed, put in. And like you've seen, I drilled out that sensor hole, put in the sensor, and clipped in the sensor right there. So now that our sensor's clipped in, technically the intake is done. Literally the last thing I need to do up here is I need to get a J piece, which you'll see tomorrow. I need a J pipe, and that'll go in right here. So I'll have a 45, a J pipe, and then a 2 to 1.75 adapter right there. And then it'll go to both pieces, and then yeah, just a whole bunch of couplers, and it's done. Other than that, I'm waiting on the ECU. So I got my Dorman bottle all mounted up. All I did is a couple self-tapping screws, and I put on a couple of about 1-inch nylons right here. Maybe a little bit under 1 inch, to tell you the truth. These just come in a TV wall mount package. And so what I did is I mounted those there. The hose plugs in on the bottom. What's cool about that? It goes down. I grabbed it from down over here. I'm going to strap it up and along the top in here. I poked it out through here. It's right here. I'm going to plug it into here. But first, I'm going to start strapping it loosely. Remember, don't go crazy because you don't want to pinch off the tube. It's going to be really hard to do that with this line, but still don't want you to do it. So pull all this extra through the grill. And again, I just brought it right through the grill along through here and then tucked it through here. I'm going to bring it up and plug it into here. Strap it, keep it nice and clean so you can't really see it, and then cut to length and put onto here. I started with 6 feet. I probably only needed 5 feet. So I ended up over at Mopac again today, and they had these universal Radiator reservoir bottles, and I had to get one of these instead of that plastic thing that I have right there. As you've seen, I installed that. I gotta show you where I'm gonna put this. It's gonna be sick. Anyways, also picked up a tuner today, so that way I can delete the MDS stuff, and I can also delete a couple other things. Don't worry, it's still getting dyno tuned. It's just I wanted this so I could already turn off some of the features and make it a bit easier. And it's always good to have this for data logging later on. So I will show you how to use that once the vehicle is running with the exhaust and all the other fun stuff. I also picked up something that's in that box, which I'll show you afterwards. But first, let's get a hold of this and show you where this is gonna go. Check this out. So I slipped this down here right beside the radiator, and look at that, right into the plastic. It'll sit right here. Hood still closes, and way shorter run of hose. Keeps it nice and clean, and it's free of all the pulleys and that steering box still. So you know what? I'm putting it right here. Look at all that room over there. You come over here, put the new radiator bottle right here, and it ties in right here and down there. Wow, looks way better. I like it just like that. Now all my fluids are right here, all in one area. Don't ever have to go to this side for fluids. Hard for me to show you now, but if you take a look here, you can see the radiator. This is where you plug in your hose that goes to your overflow right here. Make sure you don't plug it into the wrong one, otherwise it's not going to pull fluid. You'll see there's this one that says loss hose, which is a much longer one when you're looking at that canister, which if you rewind, you'll see that longer hose. Don't connect it to that one, connect it to the shorter one. The longer one is for if you overfill it and it has to drain a little bit of fluid out, it comes down. That is also a feature that the other one from Dorman doesn't have. It doesn't have a drain.
So busy making this dust cover for this. As you can see, what I've done is I've slid this up just like that, and that is going to cover that big opening where the flex plate is. Next thing I've got to do, now that I've just slid this up there, kind of sunk it up, made sure it went between the bearing and the engine, because you'll see that there's that bearing. Let's see if I can get underneath there with a good lighting angle. But see how there's a gap there, that little silver? That's the bearing retainer right there. And we want to make sure we're sealed up against that, not the oil pan. That way it makes a good seal. And that's what we're covering, the big flex plate, because the last thing we want is rocks getting in there and chipping out the teeth. So making our own custom dust cover. Later on, I'm probably going to make something so that way I can bolt into here and have a structural piece here. But for right now, this will have to do.
Afterwards, I went under the vehicle, lined my plate up, and then on the 2 through holes without threads, I marked where those 2 holes were. Then, pretty easy, just measured up from the center and put it directly in the center. That's that really small screw, so make sure you don't make too big of a hole for that one. Those ones, we're gonna just use a gauger and just try and gauge it until it meets the holes. And then I also measured and put these ones in the corner, which I'm going to drill out. Not the prettiest, but I'm going to go try and test fit it in with the that screw, and the center screw, and then we'll leave the 2 through screws for last because they're 2 through screws. Went through my screw parts bin and literally just grabbed some screws that worked. This one right here is I believe a M10, and it's a 10 mil bolt. It's only about, 20 millimeters or 20 long, not even. And then these ones are even shorter. Again, I just grabbed them from my bin, and yeah, seals up nicely. And that will seal this up until I figure out what I want to do. I'm not even going to bother putting a bolt there, because even when I build this out, it isn't even going to go up to there. It's going to come here, cover this, and then go up to the other 2 screw holes there. And that is all she wrote for right now for down here. Doesn't really show how aggressive these threads are, but I put some extremely aggressive threaded screws in. And as you can see, I just went down the center row. Now this will be held in. I'm going to loosen these bolts off and slide in the battery. Awkwardly enough, this battery box that's made for this battery from TMR Racing, the battery doesn't fit because of the feet here. So if you have this battery, you're going to have to go ahead and cut the feet off right here, so that way it fits inside that box. Just be careful you don't nick the battery. I just cut it as close as I feel going to the battery. I'm gonna go try and sink it in and see if I have to singe a little bit more off. But yeah, that sucks to have to do that. Well, just finished up here. Crimped up everything on the battery. Yes, I left the cap on the black for now. I'm not gonna do anything with that one until I have the new ECU in. And then for right now, as you can see, that's how it's gonna look. I mean, if you're wondering how I did crimp connections on there, seriously, just go watch my other video that I did just before this one where I was prepping the engine. I showed you how to crimp these. Super easy. You just grab the big hydraulic crimper and do them. I got one off Amazon for very cheap. So either ways, got that all done. I got these posts off Amazon. I ended up cranking this one down with a battery post because the biggest one for me is the positive. I don't want that thing moving at all. This one I'll probably swap out as well, but for right now I left the quick disconnect on. We'll see. If I can leave it nice and tight, it's kind of nice if you're working on the vehicle to be able to grab it, flick it, and take it off. But if I do leave that on, I'm definitely gonna have to do something, because the last thing you want to be doing is off-roading and this pop open and then you lose your negative terminal because, well, it's a really easy fix. You just pop it back on. I don't know. We'll see. One final explanation too for these big wires. You'll see I have a massive wire that's going right here. This is going to my alternator because remember, with the Jeep Speed Shop harness, they don't include that. So the next thing, like I said, run that to your alternator. This one goes to the frame ground, which I cleaned up right here. This one right here goes to the engine block. And then we also have another one, which is right here, which is going down to the starter. And the one underneath it goes down into the TIPM, which is right here. Let's see if I can quickly show you. It goes right here. So make sure you do those, otherwise you won't have power to the Jeep. Lastly, I'm doing some coolant, again going nice and slow, so that way it burps out the bubbles as much as it can. Again, there's always going to be air in the system from which we'll have to deal with later when the vehicle starts. We'll burp the system, but for right now, especially with these hoses, the best I can do is sort of do this, and it'll help burp air out of the system as well. But obviously with the stainless steel pieces, makes it a little bit more fun. But continue doing that, filling it up and squeezing it, and just make sure that the peacock valve on your new radiator is closed solid. As you can see, we have a little bit of orange in the bottom there, and if I squeeze this, it comes up, and we keep getting air bubbles. So you can keep squeezing out those air bubbles as long as you want, and continue to add fluid. And again, I'm just using this one pressure point that I left here, so I can pump the fluid. It's already doing really good, so I'm going to continue pouring a little bit more in, and after that, fill up the reservoir to the minimum line. Well, I finally got these engine mount spacers in. Todd sent them out, and yeah, so this is a 1-inch spacer. I had a lot of gap in here still, so I ended up throwing in 3 structural washers, and then I cranked that up. On the other side, which is the driver's side, it has the 1-inch washer as well, or the 1-inch. So on this side, I got the 1-inch in. It was pretty tight getting the other, he gave me another 1/2-inch spacer.
So what I just used is I had some structural washers. I put these in here and they fit perfect. And then on the other side, I did the 1-inch spacer on this side and then the 1/2-inch spacer on the other. And you will see that's the only way it'll work. And then again, a couple more structural washers. And that's on the passenger side. This is the passenger side with the 1-inch and then 3 on here, and then it hugs the side of the mount. And then on the driver's side, you have the 1-inch spacer on this side towards the engine bay, the front grille, and then towards the firewall you have a 1/2-inch plus, if you want to, a couple structural washers to eat up the gap. And that's it. Let's take a quick moment, admire everything we've been able to accomplish. Holy smokes, what a process. Again, it's really not that hard, but what dragged it out a long time was just getting all the different parts in. And of course, if you were to just slam this back together without doing little things like making your own fuel line, if you just used the one that the Jeep came with and just bought an adapter for it, or little things like that, then well, it would have gone a little bit quicker. But as everyone knows, I went a little custom with the intake, went with a different radiator than what Jeep Speed Shop goes for. I used the power steering pump, which is a little different. Usually Jeep Speed Shop will use their 3.8 pump. I went with a different battery box, which I'm still happy with. I don't care about having a dual battery, just wanted a single, and kept it nice and tucked up to the side so that way I can still access that side of the engine. And yeah, just lots of little things. But unfortunately, at the present time, the ECU has not arrived. So I'll either be splicing in right here, the engine starting, or unfortunately, I'm still waiting. And I just want to get this video up for you guys so that way you can see this is what the completed engine bay looks like. And I promise you, the moment that ECU arrives, it's going to get bolted up. I'm going to put the connectors in, and I'll probably get Chris over here from Mopar so we can quickly do the VIN skim match and start this thing up. After that, off to the exhaust shop, and then for a little bit of tuning at Mopar. Or, well, I guess I should say Mopac. That's where I'm going to be taking it. Either way, thanks again for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this series so far. Press like if this has been helping you out. And of course, subscribe for more.